A quiet debt in the stars. Ellis lived alone in a small wooden cabin deep in the forests of northern Canada. He didn't like crowds, noise, or bright lights. The quiet trees and long winters gave him peace. He worked online, fixing old satellites for private companies, and rarely saw anyone face to face. His closest neighbors were deer, birds, and the wind in the trees. One night, during a snowstorm, Ellis saw a strange flash in the sky. It wasn't lightning. It moved too fast and changed colors, glowing blue and purple as it shot across the sky and disappeared behind the hills. He stood on his porch for a long time, staring at the sky, waiting for another flash. But nothing came. Only snow and silence. The next morning, he found tracks in the snow behind his cabin. They looked like cat prints, big ones, but with too many toes. Curious, he followed them. They led him through the forest, past the frozen stream, and into a small clearing. There, half buried in snow, was a creature he had never seen before. It looked like a giant cat, but not from this world. Its body was long and smooth, with short, silver fur that shimmered in the light. Its eyes were closed, and a deep cut ran along its side. Glowing blue blood had frozen in the snow. It was still breathing, but just barely. Ellis didn't run. He didn't scream. Instead, he stepped closer, knelt beside the creature, and looked into its face. He didn't understand why, but he felt no fear. Maybe it was the way the creature's chest rose and fell. Maybe it was the way its ears twitched at his voice when he said, "Hey there, you okay?" He carried it back to his cabin, wrapping it in blankets. It was heavy but not impossible. He cleaned the wound, gave it water, and used the old medical kit he kept for emergencies. Day by day, the creature got better. It never spoke, never made a sound. But sometimes, when he looked into its eyes, he felt like it understood him. On the third night, he woke up and saw it standing by the door. Its wound had healed faster than anything he'd ever seen. Its silver fur sparkled in the moonlight. The creature looked at him for a long time, then gently placed something on the table, a small pendant made of smooth metal with a symbol etched into it. Then it walked out into the snow. Ellis ran to the door, but it was already gone. No prints, no sound, just quiet trees and falling snow. He kept the pendant. Sometimes it glowed softly when the moon was full. Sometimes he dreamed of stars and strange voices. But life went on. He left the cabin a few years later and moved to the city. People said the forest was being bought for mining, and his cabin was torn down. He got a better job, rented a small apartment, and tried to forget. But he never truly did. Then, 10 years later, it happened. Ellis was working late, staring at a screen filled with satellite maps, when the lights flickered. The city never had power problems. He frowned, stood up, and looked out the window. The streets were empty. Not a single car. Not a single light. His phone buzzed once, then died. Every screen went black. In the dark, he turned and looked at the pendant. It had been sitting on his shelf for years, untouched. Now it glowed. The soft, blue light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Then he heard a voice, not through his ears, but inside his mind. It was clear, calm, and not human. "You saved me, Ellis. Now you're the one in danger." He froze. His breath caught in his throat. The air felt heavier. The room colder. Before he could move, the pendant floated into the air and spun slowly. The light grew brighter, and strange symbols appeared on the walls around him. Glowing lines, maps, and shapes he didn't understand. Then, a shadow moved in the corner of the room. Ellis turned quickly, heart pounding. There, standing near the window, was the creature. Not exactly the same as before. Taller now. Standing on 2 legs, its silver skin covered in armor that seemed alive. Its eyes glowed softly, not with threat, but with purpose. It spoke again, this time aloud, voice low and smooth. "They found you, Ellis. I came as fast as I could." Ellis stared, unable to speak. The creature stepped forward, slowly, like it didn't want to scare him. "You saved my life when I had nothing to offer. Now I return the debt. But we must go. Now." Ellis looked at the window. Outside, in the sky, silent ships began to appear, dark shapes blocking the stars. His hands trembled. The quiet life he had known was over. And whatever had come for him was already here. The watchers in the dark. Ellis didn't move. He stood there, frozen in the soft blue glow of the pendant, staring at the creature he thought he'd never see again. 10 years ago, he'd helped it out of instinct, out of kindness. Now it stood in his apartment, not as a wounded animal, but as something far more, taller, stronger, wearing a suit of smooth, living metal that moved with every breath like a second skin. Yet in its eyes, he still saw something familiar. Not wild, not alien, something like trust. The city outside was still dark. No cars, no streetlights, no noise. The silence was thick, heavy, as if the world had suddenly stopped breathing. Ships hung in the sky, not flying, floating. Their shapes were sharp and wide, like wings stretched across the stars. No sound, no warning, no news. Ellis's voice finally returned, dry and uncertain. "Who found me?" he asked. The creature's head tilted slightly. Its voice was low but clear. "They call themselves Watchers. They track those who make contact with us, those who see beyond what they are allowed to see." Ellis frowned. "Watchers? You mean government?" "Not your kind," the creature said. "Not anymore." A soft hum filled the room. The pendant began to flicker faster. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing tone rang out from one of Ellis's shelves, and a hidden panel near the floor snapped open. Dust flew up as the panel dropped, revealing a small metal box pulsing with blue light. Ellis didn't remember putting it there. He knelt, touched the box. It was warm. "I left it for you," the creature said, "in case this day ever came." Ellis picked up the box, stood, and looked at the creature. "What's in it?" "A key, a map, and protection," it said. "But we must move quickly." Ellis looked outside again. A large ship slowly turned in the sky, casting a shadow over the entire block. Red lights blinked under its belly, and small shapes began to fall from its sides, silent, fast, like black raindrops. They weren't ships. They were beings. Tall, narrow figures, falling without parachutes. They landed softly, standing upright, scanning the buildings as if they could see through walls. Ellis's breath caught in his throat. "What are they?" "Hunters," the creature replied. "Their only purpose is to erase contact. You helped one of us. They don't forget that." The lights in the hallway outside his door turned back on, one by one, in a perfect line heading toward his apartment. The creature stepped between him and the door, raising one arm. The armor on its body shifted, forming a small shield that crackled with blue light. "You need to come with me," it said. "There's no time left." Ellis hesitated, his mind spinning. 10 years of normal life, gone in seconds. His job, his apartment, his old memories, all now part of something bigger, something terrifying. But the creature had come back. It hadn't forgotten him. And somehow, deep down, he had always known this day might come. He nodded. The creature moved fast. It pressed 2 fingers against the wall, and a glowing doorway opened, the wall melting like water to reveal a tunnel behind it, cold, dark, and humming with energy. The box in Ellis's hand began to pulse in rhythm with the lights running along the tunnel floor. They stepped through, and the doorway closed behind them. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, Ellis glanced at the creature. "What's your name?" The creature looked at him, a small light blinking near its temple. "I am called Senna," it said. "Your kind would say I am part of the Tulare." Ellis nodded slowly. "So, what were you doing on Earth back then?" Senna paused before answering. I was escaping. My ship was damaged. I crashed near your cabin. Your world was not part of our route. I was not supposed to be there. The Watchers detected the crash, but your help allowed me to leave before they arrived. Ellis thought back to that night. The snow, the blood, the silence. So helping you. That put a target on me. Yes, Senna said, but they were slow to act. They waited to see if the contact would fade. Now they've decided it didn't. Ellis sighed. I didn't even tell anyone. It doesn't matter. The bond was made. And bonds change things. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a large underground chamber, filled with strange lights and machines. In the center was a ship, sleek, silver, like a drop of water floating in midair. Senna turned to him. Once you step onto that ship, there's no going back. Your life here will be erased. Ellis looked around. Behind him, the world was no longer safe. Ahead, a new path waited, unknown and strange. But he remembered Senna, broken and bleeding in the snow. He remembered the quiet understanding between them. And now Senna had come back. For him. He stepped forward. Then let's go, he said. Senna nodded. The ship opened silently, and above them, in the city they had just left, the hunters moved through the streets, searching for a man who no longer belonged to Earth, leaving the sky behind. Ellis had never been on a spaceship before. Not a real one. Not one that whispered when it moved. Not one that floated in silence rather than roared. The ship didn't shake or rumble. It simply rose like a feather caught in an invisible breeze. The floor was warm beneath his feet, and the walls shimmered with faint light that moved like water. He didn't know if they were flying straight or spinning or standing still. There were no windows, only silence, only stillness. Senna stood beside him, watching something on a panel that wasn't really a screen. It shifted and flowed like liquid glass, showing shapes, data, patterns that Ellis couldn't understand. He didn't ask questions, not yet. Part of him still couldn't believe this was real. The apartment, the city, the shadows falling from the sky. It already felt like a distant memory, like something from a half-forgotten dream. The ship pulsed once, gently. Senna glanced at him. We're no longer within Earth's orbit. Ellis blinked. That fast. Your world is light, Senna said. Fragile. Easy to slip away from. He didn't know how to answer that, so he stayed quiet. He looked down at the small metal box still in his hands. It had stopped pulsing but was warm, like it was alive. What exactly is this? He asked. A seed, Senna replied. Part memory, part defense, part guide. It connects you to us, to the Talari. Yes, Senna said softly. And more than just us. Ellis frowned. What does that mean? Senna turned fully toward him. You opened a door, Ellis, long ago. You didn't know it, but when you helped me, when you touched blood not your own, the Watchers marked you. But so did others. Some watched in silence. Some waited. And some listened. Ellis swallowed. The air in the ship felt different now. Heavier. I didn't ask for any of this, he said. Senna nodded. I know. That's why you were chosen. The ship began to hum again, low and steady. This time, the walls shifted. Not opened, but changed, became windows. Not clear glass, but layers of translucent material that let him see the stars. Thousands of them. Far brighter and sharper than they ever looked from Earth. A few of them moved, darting between clouds of blue and gold. He wasn't sure if they were ships or creatures or something in between. Ahead was a large object, a space station, or maybe a ship even bigger than the one they were in. It didn't look built. It looked grown. Curved like a shell, its surface covered in patterns that pulsed slowly with light. Long bridges stretched from its sides, reaching out like the arms of a jellyfish. Small lights moved around it, entering and exiting like bees returning to a hive. This is our waypoint, Senna said. You'll be safe here, for now. Ellis didn't speak. His eyes stayed on the structure as they approached. A soft vibration ran through the floor as the ship connected. The door opened with no sound. Cool air greeted them, filled with a scent he couldn't describe, like rain on hot stone, mixed with something sweet. He stepped out with Senna into a wide corridor. The walls curved gently, glowing softly beneath their feet. The space wasn't empty. Others moved through it, beings of all shapes and sizes, walking or floating or gliding. Some looked vaguely human. Others didn't. None paid much attention to him. He leaned toward Senna. "Do they know why I'm here?" "Some do," Senna said. "Most don't care. Here, survival is what matters." As they walked, Ellis noticed something strange. Some of the beings wore pendants like his. Not identical, but similar. Different symbols. Different metals. But all glowing faintly. One tall figure passed by, its head shaped like a crescent moon, and nodded at him. Its pendant blinked once in response to his. "There are others like me?" Ellis asked. "Not many," Senna replied. "But enough. Some helped. Some fought. Some just listened." Ellis felt the weight of it all settle on his shoulders. The Watchers, the ship, the war he didn't even know existed. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Curiosity. He wasn't just running. He was stepping into something ancient, something larger than Earth, maybe larger than even the Talari. They reached a chamber at the heart of the station. It was quiet, wide, filled with strange machines that hummed with light. In the center, a sphere floated, black on the surface, but glowing from within like a trapped star. Senna gestured to it. "This is where your path continues." "What is it?" Ellis asked. "It will show you," Senna said, "but only if you're ready." Ellis looked at the sphere. It pulsed once, softly, in time with his heartbeat. Then it whispered his name. Not out loud, but inside his mind. Echoes beyond the veil. The sphere floated in the center of the chamber like a dark sun, completely silent, yet alive with a strange inner fire. It pulsed again, and this time the whisper was louder, though still soft enough that Ellis wasn't sure whether it came from the sphere, the walls, or somewhere deep inside his own mind. It didn't speak in a language, not exactly. It wasn't words but feelings, memories, emotions, fragments of thought pulled from places he couldn't remember visiting. He stepped closer, and the air around the sphere grew warmer. Senna didn't follow. Instead, she stood by the door, watching quietly, like she'd seen this before and knew there were parts of the path Ellis had to walk alone. The chamber was silent except for the low hum that seemed to rise and fall in time with Ellis's heartbeat. The moment his fingertips brushed the surface of the sphere, everything changed. He didn't feel the floor under his feet anymore. The chamber was gone. Senna was gone. Even his own body felt distant. He was somewhere else, everywhere else, floating in a sea of stars, no up, no down, just light and memory. Flashes came at him like dreams torn open. A room full of symbols etched into stone walls, glowing faintly in the dark. Hands, his hands, placing the silver pendant on a wounded creature. Not Senna, but another, smaller, softer, with frightened eyes. The snow was red beneath it. The wind howled. He was speaking, though he couldn't hear the words, just the warmth in his chest. The need to help. More flashes. The inside of a ship, not Senna's, but older with controls made of light and thought. A voice telling him to remember. A door opening into a place that didn't belong to any world. Strange creatures bowed as he passed, not in worship, but in respect. He saw his reflection in the surface of a black pool, and for a second, he wasn't sure he was still human. Something had changed. Something had always been different. Then came the darkness. The Watchers, tall, faceless, moving in silence through ruined cities, their hands leaving trails of black smoke where they touched. They didn't kill. They erased. Memories. Connections. Lives. They weren't evil in the way stories told. They simply believed that the universe should remain unchanged, untouched by interference. And humans, it seemed, were interference. Dangerous not because of their weapons, but because of their hearts. Ellis saw it clearly now. The moment he helped Senna all those years ago wasn't just an accident. It wasn't just kindness. It was the breaking of a rule older than stars. It was a signal, proof that humanity had reached a point of choice. Some would ignore, some would destroy, but some, like him, would choose to cross the line. The visions faded slowly, like fog rolling back. He was still touching the sphere. The chamber returned. The floor beneath him was solid again. Senna was still there, her expression unreadable, though her eyes watched him with quiet intensity. "You saw," she said. Ellis nodded slowly. "I don't know what it all meant, but I saw." "That is enough for now," Senna replied. "Your memory will return in pieces. The sphere only unlocks what you're ready to carry." He stepped back, heart still racing. "So this was all planned, even me helping you?" Senna shook her head. "Not planned. Prepared for. You're kind. Some of you carry something the Watchers don't understand, something they can't erase." "What is it?" Ellis asked. "Choice," she said simply. "The power to act without reason, to feel without benefit, to protect even when you gain nothing." He looked down at the metal box still in his hands. "And this seed, what does it do now?" "It grows," Senna said. "And when the time comes, it will choose how to bloom." Ellis sat down slowly on the edge of the platform beneath the sphere. The light was softer now, as if the sphere were resting. He was tired, but not from walking. It was something deeper, like his soul had just run 1,000 miles. "How many others are there?" he asked. "Humans like me." Senna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Not many. Some joined us willingly. Some didn't survive the Watchers. But you're not the only one. And now that you've awakened, they will feel it." "Who's they?" "Others like me," Senna said. "But not all Talari. Some from places you've never seen. Some who watched your world long before your kind built fire. Not all of them are allies. Not all of them want humans to rise." Ellis looked up at the ceiling, where stars blinked faintly through the shimmering walls. "And what do you want?" Senna stepped closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. "I want what you gave me years ago. A chance. That's all any of us really want." Ellis nodded. He didn't have all the answers. He wasn't sure if he ever would. But the fear was slowly fading. In its place, something else was growing. Not courage exactly, but resolve. He stood. "Then let's find the others," he said, "before the Watchers do." The Garden of Forgotten Names. The path to the others wasn't straight, and it wasn't safe. Senna didn't explain much as they left the station behind, only that the Watchers would not stop now that Ellis had touched the sphere. They were too late to stop him from awakening, but they would try to erase everything and everyone who helped. The ship they used this time was different, smaller, faster, more hidden. It wasn't meant for travel across systems, but between shadows. Senna called it a drift runner. It moved through cracks in space, skipping through folded corners of the galaxy like a stone over water. Ellis felt strange each time it jumped. It wasn't motion sickness, it was memory sickness. Each time they slipped between places, small pieces of forgotten dreams came back to him. A blue tower under a green sky. Laughter in a language he didn't know. A fire that burned without heat. Names, too, soft ones, whispered in the dark. None of them were his, but they felt familiar. Senna told him not to hold too tightly to those memories yet. Some belonged to others who had walked this path before. The place they were headed to wasn't on any map. Not even the Talari kept its exact location written down. It was called the Garden of Forgotten Names, a refuge for those who had touched what should not be touched, a sanctuary for those who had helped when they weren't supposed to. Not everyone there was human. Most weren't. But all of them had crossed the line between watcher and watched. The garden itself wasn't a real garden, not in the way Earth would imagine it. It floated within the shell of an ancient moon, cracked open long ago by something no one dared to name. Trees grew there, yes, but their roots floated in open air, drinking light from a broken sun held in the center of the space. Grass whispered like voices when you walked across it. Old machines, shaped like insects and birds, fluttered between flowers that changed color when you looked at them. The air smelled like different things to different people. To Ellis, it smelled like the cold pine forests of his childhood. Senna walked beside him, silent as ever. They passed statues that hummed when you got close, statues of people from many worlds, all holding the same pose, one hand reaching forward, one hand behind their back, as if offering help in two directions. They met the first human in the garden near a quiet lake made of slow-moving crystal. She was sitting on a smooth stone, watching the light ripple across the surface. Her name was Marta, and she was old, though she didn't look it. Her eyes held years far beyond her skin. She looked at Ellis and smiled, as if she already knew who he was. "You saw the sphere," she said. Ellis nodded. "What did it show you?" she asked. Ellis hesitated, then answered, "The truth, or part of it." Marta laughed, a warm sound. "That's all it ever shows, just enough to keep you walking." They talked for hours, about things he didn't know he needed to ask. Marta told him she had been a doctor once, working on a colony on the far edge of the solar system. She had saved a child, not knowing the child carried a signal hidden in its blood. Days later, the Watchers came. They erased the colony, the records, everything. Marta barely escaped. Since then, she had helped guide others who had stepped into the unknown. "It's not a war yet," she said, "but it's coming. The Watchers don't want us to know each other. That's why they hide. That's why they erase. Because they know if enough of us stand together, human, Talari, and all the others, they won't be able to stop it." Ellis asked how many others had come through the garden. She said hundreds, maybe more, but only a few stayed. Most left again, pulled by something inside them, a purpose, a calling. "The sphere doesn't choose you for nothing," she said. "It calls to those who can carry light into dark places." Later, as the stars turned slowly above the broken sun, Senna took Ellis to the edge of the garden, where the roots of the oldest trees floated down into space. There, a wall of names shimmered in the air, thousands of names, some in languages he couldn't read, some glowing softly, some dark. "Those are the ones who chose to rise," Senna said. "Some lived, some didn't, but all of them mattered." Ellis reached out and touched the wall. His name wasn't there. Not yet, but he felt the space where it might go. He turned to Senna. "What happens now?" She looked at him with calm eyes. "Now we find the first thread, the one the Watchers fear the most, the one they lost control of." "Who?" Ellis asked. Senna's answer came like a whisper from the garden itself. "The first human who touched the stars and never came back." The first thread. The name was never spoken aloud, not in the garden, not in the tunnels beneath it, and not even in the hollow places between stars where the Talari drifted like ghosts. Some called him the first thread. Others called him the one who vanished. But most just lowered their voices when his story came up, afraid the Watchers might be listening. Senna didn't say his name either, but she carried a piece of him, a memory she didn't mean to keep, a scar carved deep into her kind's history. They said he had gone beyond what was allowed, beyond even what the sphere had shown others. While Ellis and the few like him had been chosen for potential, the first thread had not been chosen at all. He had chosen himself, stepped forward when the Talari had only come to observe. He had walked into the unknown willingly, not to save anyone or help, but simply because he believed he could learn. And in doing so, he had seen too much. Ellis listened to this as Senna led him into the lower roots of the garden, a place where the light barely reached, where strange machines ticked slowly and walls whispered things not meant for the surface. The path narrowed, then opened again into a small chamber shaped like a perfect sphere. Floating in the center was a torn fragment of a suit. Black, ancient, burned around the edges. Senna told him this was all they ever found of the first thread after he disappeared. No body, no ship, just this piece, and a single data crystal so badly damaged it only played one sound. An echo of a human voice, saying 3 words, again and again. I see you. It didn't sound like fear. It didn't sound like regret. It sounded like someone making a promise. Ellis stared at the suit fragment, feeling something shift in his chest. The sphere had shown him visions, stars, memories, other lives. But not this. Not the first. Why? Senna said the sphere only revealed what a soul was strong enough to bear. To know what happened to the first thread was to carry the weight of his unfinished journey. Many in the garden believed he wasn't dead. They believed he had stepped into a place where time didn't work, where thought became matter and space folded into itself. The Watchers feared him because he had crossed a border they couldn't erase, not just between species, but between realities. Ellis sat down on the edge of the chamber. The box he carried began to pulse again, slow and soft. It hadn't moved in days. Senna looked at it carefully. It knows, she said. It remembers him. They left the chamber without speaking. The garden above had changed when they returned. The light was colder now. The roots overhead moved slowly, as if something had stirred them awake. Marta was waiting near the lake, and this time she wasn't alone. 2 others stood with her, a short figure wrapped in green cloth, and a tall one with skin like dark glass. Both wore pendants. Both nodded at Ellis like they had been expecting him. They didn't give their names. Instead, Marta said simply, "They are echoes. Like you." The short one stepped forward and held out a small device, shaped like a coin. It floated just above their palm, spinning slowly. "We found this at the edge of the Black Reef," they said, voice soft and layered. "It carries the same signal as your box, the same thread." Ellis reached out and touched the coin. In that moment, he felt a rush of images, not from the sphere, but from something older, something wilder. Visions of a storm made of thought, of machines built from memory, of a place where time screamed instead of ticking. And in the middle of all of it, he saw a single human figure, standing tall against a wave of darkness, arms open, not fighting, but welcoming. He pulled his hand back, shaking. "He's alive," he said. No one answered, but no one argued. Marta stepped forward, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "If he is, you're the key to finding him. Your path leads to the breach. It's where they lost him. It's where you must go." Senna nodded. "We don't know what's beyond it. Only that the Watchers avoid it. And that means something waits there they can't erase." The decision was no longer just his. The garden had accepted him. The echoes had gathered. Even the broken machines in the dark places beneath the roots had begun to stir. Everything pointed in one direction, toward the breach, a place beyond maps, a place no one returned from. Yet something inside Ellis had changed since the moment he touched the sphere. It wasn't fear that filled him now. It was a strange calm, the sense that everything in his life, from the snow-covered forest to the silent city, had led to this. Not as a hero, not as a warrior, but as a thread waiting to be woven. And as the sky above the garden began to crack open with silent lightning, the first steps toward that place began to form beneath his feet. The breach beyond memory. The journey to the breach was not a straight line through space, but a descent through layers of silence, like falling through forgotten dreams. No ship could fly directly to it, because the breach did not exist in a place the way planets or stars did. It floated between realities, somewhere in the folds of the universe where thought bled into matter and time unraveled like loose thread. Senna guided the drift runner with quiet focus, her hands never touching controls, her mind bound to the ship through something older than technology. Ellis sat beside her, the small box warm in his lap, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. It had not spoken, but he could feel it watching him now, not like a machine, but like an old friend waiting for him to remember something he had never known. Outside the windowless shell of the runner, the dark changed color as they approached the breach. The stars twisted into spirals, then flickered out completely. For a long time, there was only black. Then, in the center of that black, a single point of silver appeared, small, flickering, and far away. Senna whispered, "There it is." Ellis asked, "What's waiting for us there?" She didn't answer, not at first. Then she said, "Either the truth or the end." They crossed the threshold without noise. The runner began to fall, not down, but inward. Ellis felt his thoughts stretch and bend, felt his memories slip sideways. He remembered snow in the forest, but the snow was falling upward now. He remembered Senna's wounded body years ago, but now he saw himself from the outside, standing in the cabin, light pouring from his chest. He remembered being afraid once, but that fear had long since changed into something softer. And then, just like that, the runner was gone. The ship melted into nothing. There was no more floor, no ceiling. Just Ellis, floating in a space made of light and silence. And across from him stood a figure. It looked human, not just shaped like one, but familiar in a way that pierced through time. It wore no suit, no armor. Its skin glowed faintly, as if lit from within. And its eyes were the color of earth, of sky, of water, of fire. Everything. Ellis knew without asking. This was him, the first thread, the one who had stepped through and never returned, the one who had not been chosen, but who had chosen anyway. "You came," the figure said, not surprised, not pleased, just accepting. Ellis nodded. "They sent me to find you." "They didn't send you," the figure replied. "You followed the path you were already on." Ellis stepped closer. "The light here didn't cast shadows. What is this place?" The figure looked around at the strange nothing that surrounded them. "It's the place the Watchers can't reach. A place made from choice, not law. When I crossed over, I saw what they were trying to hide. Not weapons, not power. Connection. That's what they fear most. Not violence, not change, but unity." Ellis felt the box in his hand shift. It floated up slowly and opened without sound. Inside was not a tool or a key, but a memory, his own. It showed the first moment. Not the moment he found Senna. Not the forest. Something even earlier. A choice he'd made as a child, reaching out to help a bird with a broken wing. A small act. Forgotten. But the same shape, the same instinct. To help. To care. "You've always been a thread," the figure said. "You just didn't know it." Ellis asked, "Can you come back?" The first thread smiled sadly. "I can't. I'm not what I was anymore. I've become part of this place. But you can carry me with you. You can remind them what we're meant to be." The space around them rippled. The light changed. Senna's voice came from somewhere far away. "Ellis, we're losing the thread. You need to come back." Ellis looked at the figure one last time. "What if they don't believe me?" The figure reached out, touched his chest, and whispered, "Then show them." Everything exploded into color. Not pain, not sound, just expansion, a wave of feeling, thought, and memory crashing through him like a tide. When Ellis opened his eyes, he was back in the runner. Senna was gripping his arm. Alarms were blinking, but the breach was gone. They had crossed through, not destroyed. Change. He looked down at the box. It was empty now, but glowing. And in his mind, the voice of the first thread whispered once more. Not with fear, not with orders, just truth. You are the message now. When they returned to the garden, the sky was different. More stars, more echoes, and on the wall of names, something new had appeared. Not just Ellis's name, but another. The first threads, glowing side by side, and beneath them, in letters that shimmered like breath, a message for all who would come after. Those who help shape the stars do not walk alone.